You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty. This is an Evergreen episode of East Central Indiana's favorite podcast. I'm Jeremiah Morrell. As always, I'm joined by our co-host, Dakota Davis, and I guess we got a special featured guest that y'all have heard from before.
That's right. Today's episode features guest/really co-host Kade Koger. We are going to be talking to Kade about all things agriculture. We will be trying to dispel some myths and some common lies that you may hear about CAFOs, raising any kind of beef or other livestock, and also about GMO crops and whether or not the Project GMO verified sticker on all of your food at Kroger, is that real or is that all just a bunch of malarkey? We'll find out.
This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we will provoke you, other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. Have to do our thank yous as always. Many patrons picked up a new one recently. Want to thank Sean Rao for joining us and supporting the program. That's awesome. Anytime somebody can join, you can join at any level. There are some suggested donation levels. If you go to patreon.com/bosshogofliberty, there's some levels there, but kind of like the old priceline.com, you can name your price too. So if you know what, I don't like them $5 worth, but I kind of like them $2. You buy $2 Chuck or support the podcast, either or. You name your price and we'll take it at any level.
Make it more difficult to do it that way.
But if you choose that $50 and above level, what do you get, Dakota?
If you get $50 and above, then we promise to give you a shout out at the front of every episode. Those folks are John Phillips, Craig DaCosta, Chris Lamb, and Christy Avery. We also have the T-Chip stores. If you don't want to donate monthly, but you want to show your support for the show, you can buy some really nice T-Chip apparel, Boss Hog apparel from T-Chip, and that is at tchip.com/BHOL1, 2, or 3. You can get sweatshirts, regular T-shirts. BHOL1 is where it's just, that's your basic standard, the cheapest quality and everything that we can find. Then you get up to BHOL3. Those are the ones that Kade's kids are making in his garage. He has a
little Knox and Cannon who operate in the cotton gin.
He has a home gym now, so their room has just got even smaller.
At least it's American made, right?
They are good. I've been looking at Dakota's hoodie, and I've got I got to get me one. That's the next thing. You're gonna have to get the long sleeve tee, and I got to get the hoodie.
The hoodies are very nice. There's just something about being able to throw on a hoodie whenever it's chilly outside versus having to put on inside. A jacket or something. Yeah.
All right. So it'll be story time real quick here before we get into it with Kade. About a month ago, roughly by my memory, I was returning from a 4-H trip and had a bunch of kids in the car. And I'm just going to tell you all to check the oil in your vehicles, kids, because when you have low oil pressure, you'll end up disabled on the side of the road, and it's not fun. Not fun. So it was if people watched the Indy 500 in 2016, they saw Alexander Rossi in the clutch and coast. That's kind of what I did. You fire the motor, you get just enough speed, then you stick it in neutral and ride down the rumble strips for a couple of miles with the hazards on, and just to get to a safe spot. Then I called my roadside assistance, and they dispatched a local towing company, and I waited about 45 minutes. And then the local towing company, they never showed up. So we called them, and they said, "Yeah, we declined that call." Oh my God. Great. So, they're about a month ago, as we record this Evergreen episode of the Boss Hog of Liberty. It was definitely an exciting time. So I'm sure you guys have all had similar peril along the way.
There's nothing worse than having your car break down on the side of the road. My brother-in-law called me. This was about a month and a half ago, from my estimation at this point. he called me and he said that he had a friend who was broken down in Dunreath and didn't know if I could give him a tow. I said, sure, I have tow straps for my truck. And I went to get the guy, and I didn't realize that he was in a Silverado 2500, and I needed to pull him.
Were you pulling with a Buick?
I was pulling with my Ram 1500, and I was like, I don't know how well my truck's going to do at this.
In neutral, it doesn't know what kind of transmission that thing's got in it.
And so I asked the guy, I was like, where do you need me to take you? I'm in Dunreath, and he said Charlottesville.
Oh.
I was like, oh.
For the out of town listeners, that's about 15 miles.
Yeah. I was like, I'll at least,
best I can do is Knightstown.
I said, I'll at least get you to Knightstown.
Yeah.
If my truck, if it's not liking it, then we're going to have to stop. And my truck, it acted like it wasn't even there.
Yeah, it would have been fine. It doesn't
I was
know.
Impressed.
You're just pulling. Your truck can probably pull 7,000 pounds. That truck you're pulling weighed 2. I mean, it is, maybe 2 tons. It's nothing. So not a problem for your truck.
Yeah, and
as long as the guy wasn't riding the brake.
There were a few times where he hit the brake prematurely, and it was like
you get a little whiplash.
Like, you got to stop. This is getting really frustrated.
Yeah, it's fun. So yeah, there about a month ago, I went through that, and of course everything's better now, but. Just make sure you pay attention. Check the oil. Check your oil. Make sure you're ready to go.
Yeah.
You never know. So put a tank of gas in your car. Check your oil.
So, Kade, the reason I've been wanting to do this ag episode for a while because I listen to Joe Rogan a lot. That's like one of my top podcasts that I listen to, and he's constantly talking about how his grass-fed beef is so much better than any other beef, and how he says it makes him feel better, like it's better for him, and it tastes better, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, is there any truth to that?
It might be.
That's not what I expected. I expected you to go no. Go hard in the paint.
I want to because I'm not a grass-fed producer. Ours are grass-fed and grain-finished, the way that we produce our beef. The main thing I think is it's not whether it's animal products or whether it's grain farming. No matter what it is, I don't think it's a good food versus bad food argument all the time. I think the majority of the time is simply where it comes from.
Yeah,
and then how it was raised, how it was taken care of. You go to the store and you see this array of labels
of things that are packaged,
and it's antibiotic free, or it's dye free, or it's GMO, non-GMO. It's all these different things.
Organic,
non-organic. It's really confusing to a lot of people, and I think everybody wants to do what's best. Everybody wants to buy what's best for them or what's the most healthy. So the problem is that those things are marketed against people. They're marketed against consumers that just are naive to what they're buying.
Right. It's kind of similar to if you go to around Chinese restaurants and you see, they might label their food non-MSG or no MSG on there. And a lot of folks don't realize
if you remember Seinfeld, Kramer used to order his Chinese food with extra MSG.
Well, MSG is just it's a
flavor enhancer.
And
it's a it is linked to other issues too. I get migraines. My MSG is if you have too much of it, it will cause problems.
There are some folks that have an allergic reaction to MSG, but it's not the vast majority of folks. And there was a huge hysteria. I think it was in the 60s with Chinese immigrants coming over and using MSG because it was so popular in Asian food. And then some health organization linked it to people who were allergic to it might have adverse effects such as migraines. And then the public freaked out and mass hysteria ensued. People were terrified to eat at Chinese restaurants. And so that now all the Chinese places say
Chinese
no MSG.
And you're supporting communism.
And remember coronavirus.
Remember Tiananmen Square, right?
Is the coronavirus still a thing at this point?
No, that's been solved. Thank God they found the miracle drug. It was MSG. Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, so that I feel like there's a similarity between MSG and grass-fed beef. How people started freaking out because this new thing came along and the packaging, it looks nicer.
Yes.
So therefore, it has to be better for me. But to me, beef is beef.
Yeah, there's a lot of. You can take what we're going to talk about today with beef. You can use it for GMO, non-GMO, organic, non-organic, hormone or versus hormone free. You can look at all these things and find baseline similarities, and a lot of it comes back to marketing. It's the way that it's marketed to consumers. It's not always in the best interest, but a lot of the times when you see these labels, it comes with a price difference. So your price difference is going to be, if you go to the store and you're going to buy grain-fed or grass-fed, you're going to see there's a price difference. That doesn't necessarily relate to health reasons.
Everybody's looking for a marketing angle, right?
Exactly.
So you're looking for a marketing angle, and there is a cost difference. Whether or not there's a difference in nutrition or quality, there is a cost difference in grain-fed versus pasture, because if you physically need to have more ground and different resources to raise pasture-raised beef than you do if it's grain, which typically is going to be some sort of a feedlot.
And it takes longer. It takes nearly twice as long to finish a grass-fed cow than it does a grain-fed finished cow.
Right. And there are agricultural products where you see a difference in what diet you gave it versus, Kerrygold butter, right?
Sure.
You see, that butter sells for $5 or $6 a pound, but it's all from natural grain or grass-fed cows in a certain area. And based upon what those animals consume, they actually have a different color butter fat that comes in, and that makes a difference.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean that nutritionally it's different.
Yeah.
It just means that there are different properties that give you a different result.
Yes. So there are differences, and there will be different inputs, and that's ultimately what you're paying for.
Right. So the way I look at this is you have choices, right? If you want to have entirely grain-fed, locally produced, you pick the menu items you want to tick off the box. You're making the decision of, I'm going to pay a premium to have those things come off the box, so the price is going to go up, but you have that choice. And you can also simply say, I'm going to take whatever product got to market the cheapest. That's also acceptable. You have that opportunity.
Yeah.
One is not necessarily going to be unhealthy or more healthy, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. If you're looking at fat content in a product, you could have a really fatty cut of a grain-fed animal, or a really lean cut. If you go have the tenderloin off of a lot raised, you have the filet mignon off of a lot raised cow versus, I don't know what's real, a shoulder roast, I guess, be a little fattier, right?
Yeah.
So, and you could, just because it came from one animal doesn't mean that you're going to have that difference either.
Yeah. So basically it just comes down to what you do and don't know about the product that you're buying. And I think the best way to know something about the product that you're buying is knowing where it comes from. So no matter if it's grass-fed or grain-fed or organic or non-organic or GMO or non-GMO, if you know where that animal comes from, the best way to go about it is to find it locally. Cut the middleman out, cut the transport. As long as it's something that you can find that the person that produced that animal or that crop, I think that's going to be your best route as far as that goes.
Because you have the expectation or the understanding of you don't have that supply chain in the way, right?
Sure. And it's not going to work. That's not going to be the best option every time, because I wouldn't sit here and say that every animal producer out there does things the right way. Not every animal producer does it, but
just because it's local doesn't make it good.
Exactly. So definitely try to know where it comes from. I try to put myself out there with my farm. I try to connect with as many people as possible. I have people message me all the time to ask me questions about the things that we produce and sell. And I do my very best, to keep them updated and on my own social media feeds. If I see an opportunity to take a picture and explain, this is how this works, or this is what we're doing today with these crops or with these animals, I try to do my best just to be an advocate for agriculture.
So if we're looking at the economy of scale on some of this, everybody can't afford to spend, I don't know, what's the going rate of a pound of ground beef at your place? Is it $4 a pound?
Yeah.
$4.50, somewhere in there.
Yep.
So not everybody has a beef budget.
Sure.
And if you are having a beef budget, maybe not everybody can necessarily afford to pay the 30% premium that you would have over, the local grocery store. The reality is to get everybody fed, there's a place for the larger commercial operations as well.
So sustainability is the word that we hear as producers when we're looking at producing these, whether it's crops or animal agriculture. What we're looking at is sustainability, supply and demand. What can we raise? And then what are we looking at in the future as far as world populations go, trade, deficits, everything else? What can we do with what we have to maximize those efforts? And also at the same time, we're trying to maximize our own value, our own dollar that we're putting into the production of these things.
So what's your bottleneck? If you're looking at your business, is it, I can only fit, we'll say 300 cows on a property. So 300 is what I could do. Or is it, I can't move that much product at the unit I need to sell it at. So that's the cap we have, or what decides how big a farmer gets?
For us right now, we're still depending on who you talk to,
which one of the guys you catch?
Yeah, well, we're still a family farm. We're still family owned, family operated. We employ some guys, but the scale that we operate, as far as things go, some people would consider it a commercial size farm. The truth to that is modern day farms are average. I would say we're just an average size family owned and operated farm nowadays. As technology has progressed, it's made it easier for us to handle more acres and more animals, and with less help. But we're at the point where if we want to expand, we can use more help and more acres.
So we don't know. It could grow bigger. It's all a matter of survival and what works for that.
The
farm.
Markets themselves are just so volatile. I
Right.
mean, basically any move you make is going to be, nothing is ever for sure. Any move that you make is going to be a gamble.
Right.
So like we just got finished building our second newer style feedlot, and the markets right now, as far as beef goes, if you're selling commercially, it's just not great. The outlook doesn't look great, but we're hoping with these new trade deals that are coming up here in 2020, we're hoping we'll see a lot more world trade going on this year than we did last year.
So do you feel like as a producer, the beef market has slipped? The pricing slipped over.
Yeah,
it was like 10 years ago. It seems like we killed off a hell of a lot of cattle and pricing dropped way down.
Yeah.
And then after that, then it skyrocketed back up. And is that the number you're looking at?
Well,
that peak we had 7 or 8 years ago?
Yeah, it's not just the beef market. I think every market, the dairy market especially, has seen a pretty big decline. But really, all the commodities across the board the last couple of years, they've not been great, but profit is there. So we're just hoping to see more trading activity with some of these new trade deals we have going on.
So you're listening to the Boss Art of Liberty podcast on the Wall Network. Jeremiah Morrell, Kade Koger, and co-host Dakota Davis talking about beef pricing and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. What I wanted to get into on this was, to many, it's a matter of trying to turn feed into meat, right? You're turning grain into meat for the most economical price possible.
Yep. Input, output.
And that's why a lot of the CAFO, or whatever the correct term is now, confined feeding animal operations, whatever, you pick the alphabet soup that applies. But that's why those have made sense. The farms get bigger, and that's where you can most efficiently turn that corn or soybean into pork products or beef products or poultry products. So the scale's gotten bigger, but I don't know if those are the most targeted, or if that's,
I think,
why they get the bad rap.
So I think when people from outside the industry look at, I guess here we're talking specifically animal agriculture. When they look at confined feeding operations, they see the bad. They see animals that are in small spaces, that are kept there, They always try to make it seem like those animals aren't well taken care of, that they're always sick. And
the people that take care of them barely speak English, and obviously those cows know English, so they have to be spoken to in English.
You hear CAFO along with terms like factory farms, and it's from people that have no experience around them.
They have cranes that just come in and pick up all the dead ones and put them in the incinerator every day.
I've seen a lot
10
of
or 15
videos.
dead cows.
So the thing that's never mentioned in those conversations, especially when there's no farmer around that has any information with what's really going on, is the health and nutrition of those animals they're confined, so that we can keep a closer eye on how well those animals are staying healthy. I mean, it comes down to we're monitoring pH levels in their gut biome. Well, we want the feed that we're feeding them to be digested and them to be able to gain weight at a fast enough rate that we can make a profit at the end without that animal being sick, without it getting any type of injury, without it spreading any type of injury throughout the herd. So having them all in one area where they have access to fresh water, fresh feed, dry bedding, and then we can, at our facility anyway, we have a dry discharge, so their manure, as they use their bedding for manure, we stack dry straw on top of that, and then we can haul that out and spread it on our crops to grow with corn and beans for next year. But when it comes down to it, we're taking very, very close care to these animals' health. I mean, there's not a feed calf in the barn that you can go into and they don't come up and they're excited to see you there. They're excited to see you there to feed them. Some of them, they act like dogs, and people would have you believe that they're just terrified of people and they run at the sight of you. And
yeah,
it's the difference that
they all have different personalities, right?
Yeah.
Some of them want to come up and rub on you and see you and love on you, and others,
and I mean,
they're just like any other animal, right?
Yeah. And as a producer,
they all have personalities.
As a producer, it's one of the things that I really love the most about agriculture is working with animals. And it's what I liked most, going through 4-H, learning about animals and animal agriculture and seeing it, as we've progressed with it as a farm family. And, cow calving season is probably one of my favorites. Is we get to help.
It is Snapchat gold for you.
Yeah. It's fun, isn't it?
So
if you're my friend on Snapchat, you get to see live births all the time.
So we're coming up on that time of the year now. What's your Snapchat? People want to add you up.
Just Kade Koger.
Just Kade Koger, not Farmer Kade or anything. It's just Kade Koger.
Just Kade Koger.
All those Ks.
Yep.
What are the birth dates ranging from? Can cows be born at any time of the year, or do you target spring?
Yeah, we target spring, February to April. We do our best to kind of get everybody in at the same time. That way, the breeding cycle for the next year, we can turn the bulls out on the cows and have calves all in the same area.
Are you the bull, or do you have real live bulls running around?
No, we've got 2 real live bulls. So we don't do any artificial insemination. We have in the past. I don't have anything against it. I mean, I think it's a good way for farmers to get good genetics in their herd.
I mean, do you have GMO bulls? What are you trying to tell me?
No. We have real life bulls, but sometimes people artificial insemination. You can buy semen and
just buy bull straws.
Yep. And
turkey basters.
Yep. You can do it yourself or have the vet come out and you can have your cows bred.
When you would do that, is that to bring a little diversity in the herd? You kind of go through a catalog and pick something.
Yeah.
I know on the dairy side and on the hog side, a lot of folks will go through and say, hey, I need to fix these 3 faults, or these are the things I want to work on. So this is what I want to bring into the herd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can use it that way. I mean, it's really operation dependent. We've got enough space and enough pasture for our cows that we can afford to have a couple bulls on hand. And then there again, with the bulls and the cows, we take just as much care of them and their health. They've got to be healthy bulls to breed, and we've got to have healthy cows to have them bred, and then take care of the calves when they do have the calves.
Why did you decide to go with having live bulls on site versus artificial insemination?
It's just how we've always done it, and we've got the room for it.
It's a Henry County farm, and it's the way they've always done things, so that's the way they're going to do things. It worked 40 years ago, and it works today.
I mean, for us, the herd of our size, it's cheaper to do it that way than it is to buy straws and artificially inseminate all of them.
Yeah.
There's stuff happening. I don't know is there a tornado? Spring tornadoes are happening. I don't know.
I mean, have I missed anything? I'm sure we went over a lot there in a short period of time, but
no, it makes sense to me.
mean,
So I was doing my research before the show, and I can't see that corn existed 400 years ago. So why do you raise this mutant crop?
so you hear people talk about grass fed all the time, right?
Yeah,
Corn is a grass.
What?
Boom.
mind blown. Next thing you know, you're going to tell me tomatoes are fruit.
But no, it comes down to, like I said, when we talk about their gut biome and how they're able to digest the inputs, the hay, the corn, the roughage, the forage, everything that we mix for their daily feed rations, we're paying attention to how well they're digesting that food. If it was something that was unhealthy for them, they would not remain healthy.
Right. They wouldn't gain weight. They wouldn't stay.
Exactly.
They would get the sniffles.
Yes.
There would be issues.
Yes. So, and I think it's every other year or maybe every 2 or 3 years, we do a lot of our nutrition program through Purina, and they'll bring us out to St. Louis to their research and development farm, where they'll actually show us when they're developing feed rations for cattle. They'll show us the test animals that they're using. They'll show us the tests that they're actually performing for how they're getting all of this information to come up with the science behind the food rations that we're giving our animals. So it's, as a producer, it's fun to go and see the live action science of how things are actually being handled, through a corporate standpoint, and how they provide products for us to help our end result of producing the best beef that we can.
So with I'm sure that you've had grass-fed beef.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's a taste difference between grass-fed beef and your beef?
I think it's beef.
Yeah, I've never noticed a
No,
taste difference.
I can't say that you could put two steaks down next to each other and I could taste one and taste the other and tell you that there's a difference. But by looking at it, I might be able to tell you.
Yeah,
because I think my grain-fed beef has a little more fat marbling in it.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're getting a fattier cut.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot more fat there because they're given a wider variety as far as their diet goes. It's a more complete.
They're getting fat. They're getting more fat, right?
Yes.
If you're just eating grain, that's why it takes longer to put the weight on as well.
Yes.
Is it's almost like you're building blocks are smaller, right? So
Yes.
if you're baking a cake or you're icing a cake, you're doing it slower, right?
Yeah.
Instead of putting on thicker layer, just like painting a house, same thing. It's how thick do you apply something? It's the same deal with grain fed versus corn fed.
Mm-hmm.
Still going to get to the same spot, but it's going to happen a little differently. So it's going to be leaner all the way through.
Yep. That's the way it seems to be working.
But it may, you may notice more of a difference by the way you cook it, right?
Yeah.
If you use you microwave it versus using the grill, you're gonna have a different flavor.
Yeah.
Little flavor profile.
I like to do a little reverse sear, then
The
finish it.
reverse sear is where it's at.
Yeah.
So
You don't get
that's where you put it on defrost for 20 minutes, and then you take it out and you put it on microwave mode. That's the reverse sear, right?
And then you take it out and you stick it right on your electric stovetop and get that nice caramelization.
So if somebody has somebody normally goes to the Kroger or Aldi or Walmart and they normally buy their beef there, how is the experience different if they come to a local grower, a local producer, and you guys have your stand on State Road 3 on the north side of town? Do they show up and say, "Hey, I just want hamburger," or do you have a counter where they see the meat and you pick it out? How does that experience work for a customer, and what should they expect?
Well, unfortunately for us, there's a lot of government malarkey when it comes to selling our own beef products like that. It's not like a typical deli that you walk in and you see all the red meat behind the counter. Everything that we have is already cut, it's already packaged, and it's already frozen.
And that's because the law says that that's how you have to do it.
It's just the red tape that we have to go through as far as being able to legally sell it. So everything we produce is produced here in the county, Henry County. Everything that we take is butchered and processed at Matty Moo's, which is still in Henry County. And then after it's packaged and frozen there, it's brought back, and we've got a cooler at the produce stand on 3. And we keep it in a big cooler out back in the barn. And then when you you come in and you say, I want this many pounds of this steak, or you can say you want quantities of steaks, and they all weigh different because of the way that they're cut.
Sure.
And then everything's just weighed to the price, and then you pay for it there. So pretty much any cuts available, or how does that? There's a few cuts that we don't have. I wish we did have. I wish we had brisket. It's just a big cut. It takes a lot. It just takes a lot out of one animal to be able to sell that one piece versus many pieces.
So you're going to sell it all. So you cut it up in a way that gives you the most marketable.
Yes, we have all the popular steak cuts. We have ground beef. We have ground beef that's already in patties. We have cube steak. We've got roasts.
You have ribeyes, New York strips.
Yep, New York strips,
sirloins,
filet mignon.
Yep. I've had the ribeyes, the New York strips, and the sirloins. I personally, I love New York strips and I love ribeyes. New York strip I like it because of the fat cap that's on it, but I really like fat marbling that's inside of a ribeye. And it just depends on how you cook them too.
Yeah.
But
so what's your go-to if you're gonna go get a steak, and you're gonna feed the family? What's the cut you go for, and how do you like to prepare it?
I think I would say if I had to grab one out of the freezer right now, I'd probably grab a ribeye.
A little fattier.
Yeah, well, they're a little fattier, but it's closer to the bone. I wish we could cut them as tomahawks. Have you seen the tomahawk ribeyes? Yeah. I wish we could cut them as those just for the presentation of it. I've been doing a lot of cooking on my Traeger here lately, and I'll cook something real nice.
That would be really cool.
I mean, I feel like you know a guy. You probably can have a couple done custom, so that you can have some of these these boutique items available, right?
Yeah.
We'll label the Boss Hog collection down there at L&K.
Yeah. Well, we might have to charge a little extra for it.
Yeah. Brisket and tomahawk ribeyes.
I think it could be done.
Yeah, if I had to pick one, it'd probably be ribeye. And like I said, I'd reverse sear it.
Start dry aging beef down there. And
that's been one thing I've not had any experience with is how much or how well to dry age.
I had my first dry aged steak at Sullivan's Steakhouse in Indy. I had a dry aged New York strip. That is different.
Yes.
I think it was worth it. I don't know if I'll get it. We're going again here in a couple weeks, and I don't know if I'll get it then.
Yeah.
But it was, for the experience, it was cool.
Yeah. I think I've tried 2 or 3 dry aged, and it's just a little bit different.
There's no real way to explain it. Nutty, I guess.
It has almost a jerky feel to it, like the top layer,
and it's got like a aftertaste funk that's kind of similar to like a blue cheese aftertaste funk.
So one of the reasons why it costs so much, obviously, there's more labor that goes into it, but you also have waste because you're drying it out, so you're actually losing.
Yeah.
You have
a
to
big
cut it
portion.
off.
Yeah, you're losing a big portion of the meat. So
it's controlled rot.
Right. So if you had 2 pounds of meat there, and then you had a pound rot off, you still have to pay for the pound you didn't consume.
Yeah.
So now your cost is double or triple or 4 times what it would have been.
I only got it because that was their special that night. Yeah. So it was like, I think it was $15 more than the other steaks, and I was like, it's a special occasion.
Sullivan's is good. They've always got good steaks.
Do you ever have any of the local restaurants come to you looking for L&K products? Has there ever been a relationship where they've tried to come say, hey, we want to brand your beef? I know the folks in Greenfield have done that a lot.
We're selling our steak burgers at Sparky's Doghouse now. We have been for the last, I think, 2 years.
Really?
So, and those go over well. They went from, I think they said they tripled their steak burger sales when they started taking ours.
Wow.
So, I mean, we're in there once a week with a order for steak burgers.
Huh.
But yeah, we would definitely like to expand that. If there's anybody listening that has an establishment that they would like to serve locally raised and produced beef, we'd be interested in talking to you.
The steak sandwich is a Henry County staple.
Yeah.
Every bar has to have a steak sandwich that at least rivals the one at the Ice House.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it is about Henry County.
So Indiana's known for the pork tenderloin, which is literally a pork loin cut up,
that's
pounded out,
beaten into a millimeter thick,
beaten super thin, and then breaded, and then fried, and then served on a sandwich. If you're listening, suspend your disbelief if you're listening from outside of Indiana, but that's what we do. It's like a schnitzel, but we call it the Indiana pork tenderloin. Also popular in Iowa, but we beat it thin. You deep fry it. It's covered, and then It's served generally on a
It's
bun
a
with
novelty thing.
lettuce, tomato, mayo, and onion, and maybe some pickles.
They're not that tasty.
I think they're pretty good.
I feel like it tastes like oil that it's fried in and whatever condiments you put on it. It's fine. It tastes good.
Yeah,
But it's not like
now kind of like there's two Pizza
got
King.
a hankering for a tenderloin.
Kind of like there's two Pizza Kings in Indiana. There's also two different ways to do tenderloins as well.
Yeah.
You can have one that's pounded out super thin and almost feels like it's processed thin.
Yeah.
And then you can have the one that's still got, it's almost like a pork chop. It's like a fried pork chop.
Yeah.
And that's what I
the
like a
meaty
little bit better.
ones. If they're meaty like that, then I like them.
Yeah.
Pounded out, you can miss me with that.
Yeah.
Like
You
old
don't
Bill's
need
Diner
you don't need
ones.
one that's the size of a football.
No. I'm all right with. I
think we're
to
soulmates
taste
when
the
it
pork.
comes to that. I
You got to taste the pork.
used
Taste
to
the
be,
meat, not the heat.
back in the old days in Muncie, you used to go to, I think it was the Marsh or the Marsh Variety. They had different businesses they ran as hometown market. I don't remember what they are anymore. They're gone. They failed. But you'd go back to the deli counter and they would have those in there. And they were they weren't the tiny little nasty ones. They were
Oh yeah.
not nasty. That's too,
They're not
that's too
nasty.
rough. No, they're just not, they're not as good as,
Yeah.
as what you do at home. So yeah. All right. So that's the animal production side. What about GMOs?
What do you want to know?
Can you explain to me why that's not going to kill me? Because obviously CIA, FBI, GMO, those are all letters that can kill you.
Yeah.
They can just assassinate. They
Or
have the
your
power
dog.
to kill.
ATF, they
or
kill
your
your
dog.
dog.
Yeah. So calm me down off the ledge. Why should I not be afraid?
Again, it's just modern science. It's the way that we're handling. It's the way that we're handling problems as producers today. GMOs, people, you hear Frankenfood in the same way that you hear factory farm. GMOs were produced to solve issues, natural issues that we have, and those range from natural droughts, wet conditions, bugs. You've got corn borers and all kinds of different beetles and things that chew on crops that we're trying to produce. And then there are chemicals that we can use to control weeds, which it makes the crop resistant to. So you can spray it over a certain crop and it won't hurt that crop, but it will kill the weeds that are around it. These are just modern solutions to problems that we've had for a very long time with crop production.
So how long have GMOs existed? Is this 20 years? Is this 60 years?
Man, I wish I could tell you an exact date, but I don't have that one right off the top of my head.
I would say that humans have been modifying the way that we grow our food for millennia.
It's the gene editing, though, is the part that's...
Yeah.
That freaks people out because it's not done selectively. It's done too quickly. Mm-hmm. It's gone way too fast.
And there's only a handful of products that actually are GMO. A lot of stuff gets marketed as GMO free, right?
Again, I wish I had that list of.
I'm going to effort that for us because it's comical. Like it's like 6 things.
It's like 11, like 8, maybe 8 or 11 now. I think alfalfa recently they put on that list.
Just look up list of GMO foods.
But again, as far as that technology goes, like I mentioned with Purina, Dow AgriSciences a few years ago took us to their headquarters in Indianapolis, and they showed us all the science of how they come up with products and GMOs nowadays to solve some of our problems. And what people don't realize is to come up with these products, there's a typical 10-year pipeline
Oh, wow.
of research and development.
Holy cow.
So these aren't things that we're saying, oh, we're going to
They're not just pumping them out.
yeah, we're going to splice this gene with this radioactive gene and make people eat it. There's actually a lot of research and development by scientists that's going into this, and they're watching and testing basically every avenue before it can ever be approved for our use.
All right.
So issues that we have today, say there's a certain weed that's resistant to some of these older chemicals that we've been using. Say we need new chemistry to fight some of these resistant weeds. It might not be 10 years before we see an actual product on the market that we can use.
Some of your chemicals are only good for certain weeds and other invasive species.
Yes.
And it's kind of a guessing match, right? Whenever you're whenever you're spraying your crops. Mm-hmm. So you usually know, like, oh, this area is bad for sunflowers, right? But sometimes that's a miss.
Yes.
Because the only reason I know that, whenever I worked for for some local farmers. They had sunflowers that just all of a sudden appeared in a field, and it was like, we've never had a problem with sunflowers there.
A bigger problem that we're dealing with now. We're dealing with water hemp and Palmer amaranth.
I thought hemp was illegal.
Yeah, well, depends on where you're at again. But
those volunteer crops get you every time.
But these weeds have actually come out of the South, and sometimes it can migrate up with wind, or sometimes birds can bring it up. Other forms of they can truck manure up here where those animals have ate it, and it's gone in the manure, and then we're spread it out on fields up here.
That just proves to me that it really does matter what a cow eats.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm eating it.
All right, here's your list of actual GMO products. Kade, you can expand on these and tell me what they're actually used for and how it would affect us, if anything. Corn. So corn is the first one that comes up. The next one is canola, which I legitimately I'm sure it's used in other products, but canola oil is the thing that everybody thinks about.
Big in Canada.
Modified for herbicide.
Yeah, tolerance. So it's there just simply to keep other plants from crowding it out, basically. Soybeans, which everybody kind of knows that one, and that's insects and herbicide. Sugar beets. That's not a product that we have around here. Sugar beets are like North Dakota, Minnesota. Like, you need to be in almost a colder climate for sugar
beets. Bears, Battlestar.
Yeah, cooler climates in the U.S. Pest and virus resistance, and as well as herbicides. Papaya. So papaya is one. Without the technology, it's claimed that the papaya ring spot virus would have completely eliminated papayas. So GMO saved it. Cotton. Cotton is a GMO product. So don't eat it, everybody. And that's protecting from the bollworm, which could have wiped it out. Bad news about apples, or good news about apples. Some apples are GMO. Arctic Golden and Arctic Granny won't go brown on you. And allegedly, it's because they won't they won't go brown, so kids will like them better. Alfalfa is a GMO, and it's for herbicide. So that's basically to keep other weeds from growing up through it.
Yep.
Now alfalfa is primarily grown for livestock production. Correct?
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there any other reason that you would grow alfalfa?
Not me personally. I mean, animal agriculture, it's high protein feed value, so it's good.
What about squash? You eat a lot of squash?
I do. Yeah, I love squash. I like squash.
We do too. We roast it. More than anything else, we'll cut it up and we'll roast it in the on a pan.
Yep.
Usually as mixed veggies or whatever.
I like to throw it, wrap it in aluminum foil, and throw some slices of butter in there with some herbs, and then put it right on the charcoals.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Viruses will destroy 80% of squash crop every year.
Wow,
that's incredible.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's a bad business to get into. And then salmon. So that's an interesting one. Aqua Advantage salmon is the first genetically modified animal to be approved for consumption by the FDA. They grow faster. All right. So if you're going to bitch about one, that might be the one that gets you to go, oh man, that's
we got to figure out something with salmon and fish in general, just because of how much of it we eat.
How much though? Do you eat that much?
We eat a ton. We're looking at the statistics of overfishing our oceans, and it's absolutely horrifying. It's one of those things where you read it and you go, I never want to think about that again. Specifically because, there's nothing that you or I can do about it. I mean, one guy stopping his fish consumption, like, what is that going to do? Most of our fish from around here, like, it's farm fish anyway, so it's not a problem for us. But,
I think another big misconception is with the title of organic, that they don't use any type of chemicals or pesticides.
Yeah, basically all the chemicals that you are allowed to produce your crops with, they are cleared through the USDA to still use and label themselves organic.
Yeah, it's the origin of the pesticides that they can use, which deems them still able to claim the title of organic. So a lot of ours are synthetic, man-made, and a lot of theirs are more natural type ingredients. There are some synthetic that they have approved.
I mean, if you look at the chemical structure of the herbicides and the pesticides that you guys use,
yeah,
if it's man-made or if it's synthetic, it looks the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
But I think a lot of people, when they're at the grocery store and they see, organic, they immediately think no
it's
pesticides.
Better for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
no
what they
pesticides,
immediately-
no chemicals. Yeah.
It might be the case, but
With
more
some-
times than not, it's not going to be the case.
Right. Yeah. And, I think that a lot of that has to come down to, especially if you're talking about something that's natural
Mhm.
versus synthetic and man-made, there's a lot of confusion that surrounds nutrition as a whole. Whenever you start looking at, this food has so many grams of protein, but is that protein bioavailable?
Yes.
Are there branched chain amino acids that can make that protein usable for your body in this food? And there's a lot of nuance with those topics. So then so people also think, well, this must also be a nuanced topic.
Mhm.
A lot of times whenever you're talking about chemicals and the structure of chemicals like that, it's not.
Yeah.
They're the same.
Mhm.
That's just one happens to be
But it's just
synthetically produced.
most people are just naive to these differences, and that's what the marketing targets. The way that things are labeled, it just targets people that don't know any better, that want to do what's best. They want to buy the best food that they can buy for their family. And those typically target the labels typically target those people. I mean, back to animal agriculture, you see packages of chicken that say, no hormones.
Right.
Or we've never been able to give chickens any type of hormones or anything like that. You see,
No antibiotics.
There's not allowed to be any of that in animal production that makes it to, the market that has any of that. A lot of the products that we use that are antibiotics, it's to help animals that are sick, and we have to follow a withdrawal period before we can allow that animal to go to a market. And there are penalties if you don't follow the guidelines.
The last one that I skipped over was a potato.
Yes.
Innate potato, which
And, I actually watched a video on YouTube from the folks that make Things You Should Know. They also do a podcast. They talked about the GMO potatoes, and that was specifically led and mainly funded by McDonald's, because the McDonald's is so stringent and picky about the quality of the potatoes that they use for their French fries. Yeah. So they really led the industry in developing
something that would work for them.
Potato that is long
It didn't
and skinny.
take,
It doesn't have ruts in it.
government research. It just took people wanting cheap, good French fries.
Yeah. So they're longer,
Or cheap and consistent French fries.
They're longer, fatter potatoes. They don't have as many divots in them.
Wow.
And they also don't get bruised as easily. Yeah.
All right.
I thought for some reason there was also rice. Is there no rice on that list?
Not that
I thought there was a golden rice that was somewhat higher in a certain vitamin. They were using in Asian countries for vitamin deficiencies.
Why does that have to be Asian countries?
It's just what happens.
Because they eat a lot more rice over there than we do.
I want to say it was called a golden rice.
If we're going to eat grains, we're going to eat bread, dang it.
I could be wrong. Or it could be something somewhat related.
Yeah, there's
Golden rice. Yep.
Sure.
Genetically modified, biofortified crop.
This is
So we're actually using that technology to help solve vitamin deficiencies. And I want to say that vitamin deficiency, whatever it is, might lead to blindness.
dealing with malnutrition in developing countries. Yeah, it's a project.
Yeah. So this is actually, it looks like,
It's really a pretty current debate.
Yeah.
There are risks. Do you want to know the risks of golden rice?
they say they're very minimal, but they say they are still discussed in popular discourse. Yeah. Because
I didn't know
we
I was
freak
this
out
old.
about these things.
I didn't know I was this old until I tried to read the golden rice article online. my end, I had to go up to senior print font here. It's an NYU study that I'm attempting to read here on the fly.
So this is something happening right on the cusp of GMO technology.
It's something
we are
similar.
on the tip of the spear.
It's something similar to like what we've done with the iodine in the table salt.
Yeah.
For deficiencies within the United States. I think it's something similar that they're doing with this rice, because a lot of developing nations grow and consume a lot of rice because it's very nutrient dense already as a food.
And you're exactly right, Kate. They're adding, trying to put beta carotene in it, which is not normally produced in rice.
Yeah.
But the beta carotene turns into vitamin A when metabolized by the human body, which gives you healthier skin, immune system improvements, and vision.
Yep.
So that's exactly what they're trying to get done.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We couldn't feed the world without GMO crops.
Yep.
It's just,
again, it comes back to sustainability. What can we grow on an acre of land with the technology that we have available to us versus what can we grow on?
That's probably a good place for us to wrap up. You basically, the situation that the world has, and the
7.5 billion people.
The burden we place on farmers is we give you less farm ground. We try to control you
and
more.
We're less than 2% of the population.
And we try to get you to feed more of us.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And we're not particularly thankful. Move out of my way.
Not
get out
all
of the
time.
way.
Yeah.
You're slowing me down.
Machinery's in the way.
Yeah. And honestly, so if you're here in Indiana, you feel like, oh my God, there's farm fields everywhere, right? It's constant. It's everywhere you look. But if you travel the country, you realize that there are states where there's agriculture, but it's not as overwhelming it is as Ohio, Indiana, even Michigan, Illinois, Iowa. If you go down into Kentucky, all of a sudden you don't see cornfields everywhere. You don't see soybean fields everywhere. You get down in Tennessee. There's agriculture, but it's not the complete saturation of a community or of a state like we have here. Mm-hmm. I would say, I don't know, what is it? Probably 60% of the ground in Indiana is probably agriculture.
Yeah.
If you take out the national forests and the cities and the small amount of water that we have, the rest is agriculture. That's the undeveloped ground. That's generally what happens, unless it's protected as a park or a forest or something. You've got limited resources.
Sure.
And right here where we live, this is some of the most productive ground available to do what you do.
Yeah.
If you go 50 to 60 miles south of us, all of a sudden you start to see people having to bring center pivots in and irrigation.
Yep.
If you go down to Bartholomew County, it's a different environment than you have right here in East Central Indiana. So consider yourself blessed to be farming where you are, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's probably where we should end this episode. Is there anything else we skipped out on, Cade?
No, I think I would just wrap up with, like I said at the beginning, it's hardly ever a good food versus bad food argument. Just kind of have an informed opinion on what you're buying at the store. Labels aren't always telling you exactly what you need to know. Really the best option that you have is to find somebody local. Even sometimes, I know through us it's kind of seasonally with the produce, but we've got beef year round now, so you can come to us if you're looking to buy any kind of beef.
If I want shrimp, should I insist that I get shrimp that came from the ocean that was off of the United States, or is it okay if it came through China? Because it's the same damn ocean. It all connects together.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Am I at risk if I buy shrimp that started in Taiwan or China?
See, I would be in the same boat because I don't really have any knowledge on that one.
Right.
So, if it's something you can research while you're in the store,
he's a cow
do
farmer, not a shrimp farmer.
Well, this is what I'm saying though. Is it's another one of those products.
It might just come down to what you can afford.
So the label says that it came from Taiwan, and man, I'm uncomfortable because it comes from Taiwan, and they look different than I do.
The shrimp I ate today was Argentinian.
So I insist on shrimp that comes from my country, right?
Yeah.
It's your responsibility. You can put anything on a label, but it's your responsibility to understand what that means.
Exactly.
And if it matters to you or not.
Yep.
You've got that much information, and now it's your burden as a consumer to figure it out.
And if you can buy local, if you can't, try to educate yourself a little bit on what you can find. If you have questions about any type of local agriculture, animal, or grain farming, absolutely feel free to message me. I'll do my very best to answer you or at the very least, point you in the right direction for a good answer.
So jump on bosshogofliberty.com. Cade's contact info is there. You can, he's tagged in almost everything. Go to the website. Every episode Cade's ever been on is there.
Yeah.
And then you can follow him on the Snapchat at Kade. You're at Kade Koger on every platform, right?
The Armed Farmer.
The Armed Farmer on the IG. Instagram, yeah.
All right. What's your TikTok? You got one of those yet?
Nope, I'm refusing that one.
You could go viral.
We Chinese. I'm not going over there.
The federal government classified TikTok as a cybersecurity threat.
Yeah, I am not getting that.
Not doing it. All right, Dakota, you got anything else for Kade?
I have nothing. Just stay off TikTok, kids.
Thank you for listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty, which is part of the We Are Libertarians Network. I am Chris Spangle, and I am the founder of this network, and I invite you to listen to all of our shows, which you can find at wearelibertarians.com or by searching for these in your podcatcher. The flagship show is the We Are Libertarians podcast, where we apply libertarian principles to current events. The Brian Nichols Show is a conversation amongst Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, as they talk about what is happening in the news. And we have many other podcasts like The Chris Spangle Show, Upward, The Cost, Raw Audio Politics, Miranda's World, and Tad Talk, which is quite a ride. So check all of these out. Go to wearelibertarians.com and you can check out all of our great podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at wearelibertarians.com.